Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is Monday, October the 7th. This is the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Reciprocity Committee meeting. Notice was posted of this meeting on the board's website on October the 2nd. And if I could, I will do a quick roll call to get us started. Ms. Nina Kappinger is on the committee, and I don't see her here. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Here.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Present.
Ms. Patricia Parsons?
Present.
Thank you. And we also have with us Ms. Becky Russell.
Here.
Thank you. And we have her with us like we did at the last meeting because we'll be looking at that reciprocity process that she's helping us try to move forward and develop. So if I could get you to turn on to your reciprocity presentation on your iPads, we will start with Ms. Jennifer Beck. You have before you an application for reciprocity of a manicure license from Ohio for Jennifer Beck. The certification shows initial licensure in 1999 as an advanced manicurist with 300 hours and both exams. Ms. Beck communicated with the office regarding proof of work experience. She moved to Tennessee in 2013 and has not worked in the industry since then, placing her license on what's called escrow. She has 14 years experience, but none of it is current. She is now ready to join the industry and start working in Tennessee. My recommendation is that we approve her for reciprocity.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Virginia for Talia Kessner. The certification shows initial licensure in June 2016, giving her 3 years of work experience. Ms. Kessner did her hours while in high school, and it appears that Virginia allowed her 566 hours to be considered completed curriculum, as she was allowed to take and did pass both exams. I will let the board review all these documents. My recommendation is that she take the practical exam. This is one of those situations very different from the typical that we see. Keeping in mind that we are going to discuss the reciprocity process as a whole, I try to have some of these recommendations be related to that.
She had 300 from school, right? High school?
The school hours are actually a total of 566 hours while in high school. So obviously not. So she did them during a 2-year track, Cosmetology 1 and 2.
I make a motion for her to take the practical portion of the test.
Second.
A motion and a second for this applicant. Take the practical test. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Pennsylvania for Samantha Klee. License lookup shows initial licensure date of November 1999. Ms. Klee completed her education in 1988 when they required 1,500 hours. She had not taken the practical exam and is asking that it be waived given her 20 years of licensed experience. She does not have any current proof of experience as she left the industry to be a stay-at-home mom, and she provided a letter along those lines. My recommendation is that we approve her for reciprocity.
She had how many years experience, Roxana?
Her initial license is from 1999.
Okay.
And she actually finished school in 1988 with 1,500 hours, so she'd have the hours. She has 20 years of licensure. If we look at from the time she was licensed to now, she just didn't practice in the last few years due to being a stay-at-home mom, but she's now in Tennessee and wants to join the industry and has taken the exams. It's just Pennsylvania doesn't have the practical.
She happened to submit any information, even though it wasn't recent, about her employment, any kind of record for any previous employment?
Other than her letter, no, we don't have anything on file. What we've done with the practical exam being waived, and it mostly applies to our Florida individuals that move, is if they have 10 years of licensure experience, then we've waived the practical. In her case, she has the 20. But we haven't necessarily been looking at all the details of the work experience either. It's been based on licensure.
What is the board's recommendation?
I recommended that we approve her for reciprocity.
It's 1,500 hours, is that correct?
Yes.
She states on her application she has 1,800, and then in the letter she says she has 1,300. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out how many hours she actually
Looking
has.
back to what historical items we could find, it was about 1,500 at that time. Pennsylvania now has dropped to, I want to say 1,200 is what they require now, and no practical, so it's dropped some. But again, the licensure since 1999 would cover the experience if she, in fact, all that length until she stopped to stay at home.
I have been working as a manicurist and esthetician in Austin almost 10 years. I moved back to Murfreesboro in February 2019, so it seems like she ought to have some work experience to be able to show us.
Better if she took at least the practical portion to show that she knows how to do the sanitization and stuff.
Well, that's the given. That's what I
Yeah.
approved her for.
Okay.
So that's what she was requiring. She's presented additional information to request that it be waived. That would be the only thing
Okay.
she is missing. So either we waive the practical or we don't accept her letter and put her back through it.
A recommendation or a motion?
Make a motion for her to take the practical portion of the test.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to require the practical. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of an esthetician license from Texas for Hien Lee. The certification shows an initial licensure in April 2009 with 750 hours and both exams. Ms. Lee completed her education at one of the schools that was investigated, and the board decided that Tennessee would not accept those hours or licensure for several years prior due to the violations that were determined by Texas. Ms. Lee, however, received hours and licensure several years prior to the period covered under the investigation. She provided proof of work experience in Texas between 2009 and 2018. She also provided proof of residency in Texas. She's requesting that all this be considered as proof that she was licensed properly and therefore meets Tennessee's requirements. The Texas license will be confirmed to be active. It is on your iPads on page 33, but expired in April. She's been in the application process for a while now. And my recommendation is that we approve her for reciprocity. We've only done this to one or two other individuals that fell in that pipeline where we knew they were not part of the investigation and we knew they actually lived in Texas, not that they followed the whole revocation process we had to go through.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Florida for Ming Nguyen. License lookup shows license was issued in September of 2013. Ms. Nguyen states she completed 1,500 hours in 1999, but could not provide her transcript. Because she is not licensed for the 10 years, she would have to take the practical exam. She's asking for consideration of all her work experience exclusively in the manicure discipline, and for us to approve her manicure license, not cosmetology. This is a little bit unique. We've done this on other occasions where we can tell from the work experience. All her tax returns show nail salons as opposed to full cosmetology. And that is what she's stating, that she would actually like to obtain a manicure license, not a cosmetology. Obviously, then my recommendation, if the board agrees to drop it down to manicure, would be that she needs to pass both exams because she would not have tested in manicuring.
I'll make a motion to have her test in both portions of the exam for manicure license and drop her down to a manicurist.
I second that.
You've heard the motion and the second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. This is a two-part request. This is an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology and an aesthetics license from California for Christine Nguyen. Certifications from California shows her cosmetology license was issued in January of 2002 with 1,600 hours, and not from one of the schools under investigation. And her aesthetics license was not issued until November 2018. The California requirements for aesthetics are 600 hours. They only required she complete 200 additional hours specific to aesthetics in 2018 to grant her that license. She provided letter showing work experience between 2013 and 2019. That letter is on page 62, and it again states that most of her work experience was in nail service, facials, and waxing. So my recommendation is that we approve both the cosmetology and the aesthetics license. We did explain to her that in Tennessee she would not need to have both, but she's very comfortable working in the spa industry and might be seeking to work in conjunction with the medical part, and so she needs both.
Say what the recommendation is again.
To approve both her licenses. If she did not have the cosmetology, she would need 600 exclusively in aesthetics and the work experience of 5 years, and obviously she just received that one. But as a full cosmetologist since 2002, she's been doing aesthetics work. The shop states that she's been doing mostly facials and waxing and nails. And so California moved over, of the 1,600 hours of cosmetology, they moved over 400 to her aesthetics and actually had her complete 200 additional hours in aesthetics. So between all the experience she's obtained since 2002, my logic is that she's met a lot of the aesthetics experience.
And she'd been tested, so.
Make a
Yes,
motion to
California.
approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
That is to approve both licenses,
Yes.
correct? Okay, thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology instructor license from Iowa, and this is for Erica Palmer. Certification shows an initial cosmetology license date of April 2012 with 2,100 hours and no practical exam. License lookup shows that she obtained the instructor designation in November of 2017 with 16 hours of training in teaching methodology. A theory exam is required, but no practical for that as well. My recommendation is that the applicant take the practical instructor exam and be approved for the cosmetology. It's the instructor exams that vary in every state. The
Make a motion
instructor
for her
license.
to take the instructor exam and be approved.
I second.
It passed.
Motion and a second to require the instructor practical. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a manicurist license from Virginia for Chaya Rutherford. License lookup shows initial licensure in April 1996, which expired in 2008. It appears that because the license expired, she had to pass both exams again, and she did that in 2018. Tennessee has something very similar to that. She provided a letter explaining the family moving to Tennessee and the need for her license. She has her license back now and active in Virginia since June of 2018. My recommendation is that we approve her for licensure.
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
And our last applicant for reciprocity, this is a reciprocity application for a manicurist license from Missouri for Tiffany Shandley. Certification shows an initial licensure in December of 2013 with 400 hours and both exams. Ms. Shadley moved to Tennessee in 2018. Therefore, she does not have the 5 years of work experience. She provided records between 2014 and 2017. My recommendation is that we approve her for reciprocity.
And she had both tests, so that's on there.
At both tests, she has 3 years instead of the 5. And again, keeping in mind, we haven't decided the reciprocity move, but we've been discussing it. So that's what I was inclined to look at as we review these.
Approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And that is all that we have. We have about 10 minutes, which is what I was hoping for, to turn it over to the committee to discuss how we proceed with our hopes to establish something for reciprocity, something that maybe does not delay our applicants as much, gives them some options, and streamlines some of the process that we have going on. So I will turn it over to the committee, and then we can discuss with the full board.
Okay, so we had a good discussion at our last meeting regarding this, and as we see this morning, we've got so many reciprocity applications that are really kind of all over the board. The last meeting, I know we've all thought about this a lot and put some work into our own minds. If you'll allow me, I want to just kind of share my own personal opinions here for a second and see if this kind of makes sense. You know, we're not, I think in the last meeting, some of our members might have been concerned that we were changing hours and things for the coursework and such. And I think that was completely wrong-minded. That's not the topic that we were looking at. I believe that with reciprocity, what we really are trying to do is to ascertain that if each of these applicants that are coming in, are they actually qualified to do the work and substantially meet the requirements of our state? Right now, those requirements are 5 years work experience. If they don't meet, and they have to meet some other statutory requirements. I think the component that is probably throwing the biggest roadblock is that 5 years of work experience, because if they come with work experience and have had their tests, then we move them on through. If they come without work experience, that's where they typically get the log jam. And particularly now that we're meeting every other month, that can significantly slow down the path to work. What significantly meets Tennessee's requirements? Many states, I think you had a really great chart that you put together, have requirements ranging from 1,000 hours mainly up to 1,500 hours, like we do. The magic number of hours, I don't think is actually from state to state is so important, as they've been educated on the things in the curriculums that each state has required. If we accept reciprocity from the state, we're not questioning the curriculum that they have. So we're simply really looking at that work component as the differentiation here. 5 years, where that number came from, I don't know if it was arbitrary when it was really set up and made, just like this may be an arbitrary number for us as well. Personally, I think if you have been educated in a licensed school, have been tested in your state, and worked in the industry and have at least a full, I want to say 2 years, 1 year may be a better number, I don't know. I think for myself, 2 years, 1 to 2 years would satisfy me that they have work experience enough to be in the industry. 3 years might be the right number, I don't know, but for myself, I think about 1 to 2 years.
I'm on board with, I think they need a little bit of experience somewhere, whether it be a year, whether it be 2 years. I'm happy with either one of those numbers. That way they're not confined to 5 years, which is a long stretch. But your chart was really good on the percentage of the hours, but I'm in agreement they need at least a year or two, so that we know that they've been out in the public, they know how to deal with the public, they know the safety for the public. That's my opinion.
Are these 1, 2 years, whatever number we come up with, is that going to have to be immediately preceding this date?
I think that would be the best test, that they have some experience, because, you know, if I got licensed 15 years ago and worked a year then and just didn't do anything else, you certainly haven't maintained your skill, because it is an expiring skill. Our mandate is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and I think years' experience, because that is enough to generate a record if they've had a complaint against their license, for the most part. And of course, the longer you're in the industry, the more likelihood you might be exposed to a complaint. So I don't know if that's a real test, but it's something that could be considered.
My only concern with the immediately preceding this is like how immediate, because a lot of times someone may move and then they need
Right.
a little time to get settled in. So if they come to us 6 months later, are we looking at it and saying it's not immediately preceding? So I don't know if there's a way to say how immediate, or, you know, could it be 2 years within the last 5? Or
I was thinking something within the last
1 year within the last 3,
Yeah.
two within the last 5.
I just hate to see them, you know, move and they took 6 months, or, you know,
Right, to
a
get
lady
ready.
takes off a little time because she had a baby in the mix or something like that. And
Definitely put a number on there, like 1 to 3 or 2 to 5.
I had a conversation with someone from another state this week who asked a question about reciprocity, and their example was this person was married to a person not in the military, but who just moved around a lot. In the last 5 years, they'd moved 5 times, in each state that spouse had to actually retake a practical exam, a theory exam in each state. So 5 tests in 5 years. That's you know. What do you think?
I think that they've taken both their tests and passed those, and if they have a year's experience, and
Within the last, so they don't get tied up on something within the last.
3 years is good.
That should cover the broadband of anything that's out there, probably.
If I could interrupt just to make sure that we are not going to be able to establish a process that covers all, which is the reason
Right.
that at these
Right.
meetings we bring, this is just a handful. We probably approve 50 to 70 reciprocities a week. So this is just those that don't fall in. So you can tell how few aren't falling in what we've already set forth. So our statute must have an active license, that can't be changed, and that substantially meets is the piece under which we're able to evaluate this and try to be more flexible, and the board has shown an interest in that, so this is just a wonderful conversation. But that same statute says, or the 5 years in order to not test. We're not discussing that, we're trying to look at that
But
substantially
substantially meets, okay. So it's still going to, still have to maintain?
No, not at all, because if substantially meets, at least this is what legal has helped me kind of understand, if substantially meets to the board now means an active license, can't change, education, which we've said, but we're not being now stuck on the must be 1,500 hours, 750 or 600. We're saying education, both exams, then either way, we're not having them test, which is the
Right.
bottom part. You have 5 years in order to not test.
Okay.
So I think the conversations you all are having is great because you're looking at education just as a whole. You have the education that state says is okay, be it 1,000 hours instead of 1,500. You have the 2 exams. So then the substantially would be the experience that you're now defining, and that's a fantastic conversation. Even if we say 3 years, then we would bring fewer people to the table still. Because the vast majority are falling in that 1 to 2 years from what we're seeing lately. We're just more mobile now, and we're coming to Tennessee, which is fantastic. And so that would be the key piece. But it sounds like under that top piece, you've got some really good ideas of how to redefine substantially meets.
We need to change within the 5 years to like maybe,
Well, we can't change the
we
5
can't
years.
change the 5, we have to
No,
put it.
it's how
in
we're
there.
recognizing that they've substantially met. So
Just-
they've got 5 years of work experience, that's off the
that's easy.
table.
You won't see those.
Okay.
But if they don't have the 5 years work experience is what we're looking at now.
Those are the folks that now we're putting through to the practical for the most part, in some cases to obtain more hours. That's the piece, because we've determined that they didn't substantially meet.
Don't want to require any of those folks to take a Tennessee test? Is that too much, or is there something we can cobble together with that? Because right now, if you come from another state and you don't have the 5 years experience, then we look at, have you been tested?
Yeah, right now substantially meets is pretty close to what we have. We still look at the number of hours because you don't have those 5 years. So generally speaking, it's, for example, we'll use New York as an example, just because they're right at the 1,000 hours. And we've determined, at least until now, that wasn't substantially meets. So you have 1,000 hours and you just moved here a year ago. We've been asking for 500 more hours. And then after you finish those hours, education, because you were a third of the way short. I believe in only one situation did we waive the exams, given the individual's experience owning shops and other pieces. So we reevaluated those pieces. If we establish a new process, it will definitely move folks quicker. But if then we're looking at education as a whole, not number of hours, that right there is even a huge move. We would not be sending someone from New York, let's say, back to school. We would look at the first part of reciprocity, which has an active license, and they do, that substantially meets, and we've determined that means both exams and some experience. And then what is that some experience?
Right now, if somebody had been licensed for 2 years in New York and they come, or even if they came from a state that had 1,500 hours, which meets us, they'd still don't have the work experience.
If we go with a year of work experience,
Within the past.
yes, the last 3 years.
That should give them a little broadband of having their work experience in case they were out or just took a.
Does that move us forward a bit?
I think that's incredible. I mean, if I'm understanding what we're saying is we would consider, and I tried to write down, Ron, what you said a little bit. The person obviously under the statute needs to have an active license. That doesn't change. And we're defining substantially meets as someone that is educated in their state, whatever that state means. Tested, and so we are still, I believe, you're still looking for the 2 exams, and has work experience of a year, at least a year within the last 3 years.
Right.
And most, that 1 year will, I think, catch the majority, but some that had to, raise kids and what have, might fall in there. We'll always have those few that we present, but that is the vast majority. If the committee agrees with it and we motion it, we could take that to the full board, and they could always change it again, but at least we've got something. The vast majority, we will be able to move very quickly like this. Also, I don't know if you noticed in this particular presentation, but most states now, just like Tennessee, has a way to verify licensure. And so we're actually looking them up. We've been able to move people 2 to 3 weeks faster, not waiting on that certification, because the lookup is their data, just like ours. You can't not pull it. So anytime it's available, we're pulling that as proof of active licensure as well, and it's been helping a lot, a lot.
Becky, are you comfortable with the 1 year, or is it 2 year? What's your number?
I think I'm comfortable with either. So, I think maybe it's a discussion for the entire board to have. I think either one of those works. My big thing was I hated to send someone back to school for additional hours, because what does the term substantially meet mean? I don't think that we can nail it down and say that it has to be 1,500, because that's not substantial. That's the full amount. That's not substantially meeting. That is meeting. So I think that that is a good kind of alternate route for them.
To make a recommendation to the full board, would we still, if the board came back and said, hey, if enough members said 2 years within the last 3, or something similar to that, trying to think of options.
Yeah, I like 1 in the last 3 or
Yeah.
2 in the last 5. That
Last 3, 2, and last 5.
one of those works well.
Okay. Roxana, did you make some notes on that in
I
case
did.
I can't
I did, and I think I can reinstate it or reread it, and then you all can correct me. And I don't think we necessarily have to have a motion. That
Right.
just means that
We'll just
someone
make the
will motion
recommendation.
from the full meeting, and, I mean, this is huge. And I'll make sure that I've got everything in order, because what this will change is how we approve in the office, because, again, we're only seeing the exceptions at the meeting, so we're moving people and welcoming them very quickly. And I think this is great. I don't have anything else. If that's all the committee has, we'll definitely address this piece later on.
All right.
We need a motion or to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Thank you, and we will start the complaint committee here in just a couple of minutes.
That's where she was. So
Leon?
Leo.
Oh, Leo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning. We are on the record. This is the complaint committee meeting. This is Monday, October the 7th, the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners meeting, and I will do a quick roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Here.
Frank Gambusa? Thank you. Becky Russell? Here. And Amy Tanksley? Hello. Hello. Everyone is here. I will turn it over to Ms. Pamela Spicer, and our presentation is on your iPads.
Good morning, everyone. I realize the legal report's 25 pages, several to present. There's not a particular complaint that stands out, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about any complaints that come to mind that you want to review this morning.
It was not a boring read.
I was wondering why. I said, wow.
Pam, if we could, I know it's near the end, but if we could look at number 56.
Yes.
Anytime I see those where the licensee is uncompliant or difficult with our inspectors, those always give me pause there.
And as you see, this 56 is the individual who's also the owner. 55 is the shop. I have spoken to this gentleman. I will say, when I say he's difficult, I really don't mean difficult. I think it's just the way he speaks to people. He has spoken to me in a way that could also be interpreted as rude. He's very short and to the point. As you can see, I was able to actually settle one of his complaints. I just think it may be his personality that unfortunately he can't help. But I understand we do not want people being uncooperative or rude to our inspectors. But I have spoken to this individual and can see where the inspector is coming from. But I think this is just this person's mannerisms.
Rude and
I mean, I
not
hate to say
kind,
rude.
those kind of things. I know
Yes.
that's all subjective, but uncooperative is a whole different thing. They have to cooperate with our inspectors. I guess with this case, I'd probably like to at least see some kind of, because we have a letter of warning here for sanitation violations, but I think I'd also like to see maybe some education on unprofessional conduct, because not cooperating with the inspector, I think, would fall definitely under that.
Included in the letter of warning, we can include language about professional conduct when inspectors, come into the building and/or dealing with board staff. His interaction with people with this department.
The pamphlet on manners, around.
If he can be rude if he likes, but he still has to cooperate.
Basically, the letter of warning would be for sanitation violations and uncooperative behavior during the inspector's visit, just so we're clear.
So is
That's
part
fine.
of that dollar amount for uncooperative behavior?
No.
No.
No. And we don't have a scale for that, do we?
On case 24, that was simply just a holdup in the renewal process. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, I think there was some confusion about the payment. Apparently, I'm going based on what was in the report, but based on the fact that ultimately the license was renewed and there was not a delay, that's why I recommended closure. As you can see from the summary, it looks like it was on hold due to a name change, but I think that's all obviously been taken care of now.
Have anything?
Any other questions?
You did a wonderful
Oh,
job.
thank you. And Mr. Cross did assist me with this legal report. I thought that would be a good experience for him to go through, since we had several complaints to review. So I do want to also point out that he helped me with the report and preparing the summaries and making the recommendations.
Appreciate what you do. This is a good report. So, do we need a recommendation on it, or a motion on any of these?
The committee normally goes ahead and approves as amended, and then the full board will rectify, yes.
Sure, then I'll make a motion to approve,
Second.
as amended, excuse me.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
We will go ahead and end the committee meeting, and the full board starts right at 10. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Good morning. This meeting of the Tennessee State Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners is called to order. We'll begin with the roll call.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly Barger is not here with us. Ms. Anita Charlton? Thank you. Ms. Nina Coppinger, also not here yet. Mr. Frank Ambusa?
Here.
Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Here.
Ms. Wybeck Granger?
Here.
Thank you, and thank you again for participating telephonically. Ms. Judy McAllister?
Present.
Ms. Patricia Parsons?
Present.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Here.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Here.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield? She's not here at the moment, but she should be joining us shortly. Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Present.
Thank you. And we have quorum. Chairman, you may proceed.
Very well. As we always begin here at the board, we'd like to introduce a few folks who are with us today. I'd like to take just a moment to introduce Mr. Hugh Cross. He is the board's new attorney, and we want to say welcome to you. And thank you for being a part of this process with us. It seems like this may be the proving ground for attorneys with the state, which we get lots of them. But welcome. I'm glad to have you. Okay. Also, we always like to recognize our schools who are represented in attendance here. So if you would, one person from each of your schools, please stand up and tell us who you are and tell us about your school. You're welcome to come in and sit with us. Welcome, Michelle. Good to see you here. School of Beauty. At all of our schools? Well, thank you for making the drive. That it? Okay. We also have Ms. Dixie Russell and some folks from Chi, which is a product and equipment firm that have joined us here today. I believe she came in from Texas. So thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy the meetings. This must be our students. Welcome. Ms. Roxana, if we, the next order of business will be the approval of the August 2019 minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the August 2019 minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Ms. Roxanne, we're down to you.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that. First, we have our individuals appearing before the board, and you've got on your agenda all of the schools in no specific order. They're also on your iPads. I will start with DCI Academy. This is a change in location, and if you'll bear with me, I'll have Ms. Cox come up in case you have questions. Thank you. This school is located in Memphis, and it is a specialty aesthetics school with a total 1,800 square feet. The floor plan applications and fees were received timely. This could not be presented at the August meeting, even though we had it on the agenda. Ms. Cox was still in the situation of looking for a new place. So you have on your iPads the original application that was turned in May, and then the updated location is the second document. You have a floor plan, contract, and all the documents to review. Again, this is just a change in location, so the main document there would be the floor plan, and I'll let the board ask any questions of Ms. Cox.
Just under 1,200 square feet.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Thank you, Ron, for correcting that. It's 1,191. I think I had the old number in my notes.
Roxana, on the specialty schools, we don't require a specific number of contracts up front.
Correct, we do not. And this is not a new school. This is a change in location, correct?
That is correct.
Just moving. Otherwise, we actually require 5 contracts the first time that they get licensed.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Tanksley to approve. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Clerk Case, would the board like to see a field inspector and board member go since it's a new location?
I believe that would be appropriate.
Thank you.
Mona has signed up to go.
I've got her down. Thank you. She'll be happy. Just kidding.
That's what happens
you.
when
Good
you're
luck.
not here.
That's what happens when she's late.
That's right.
You're right.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Signature Design Beauty Academy. This is a new cosmetology school. If you'll give me a minute. Ms. Solari? Hi, welcome.
Give me thanks.
This school is located in Tullahoma. The school is 2,386 square feet. The business license, curriculum, blank contract, floor plan, contingency plan, application, and the fee were all received timely. I will let the board review and ask Ms. Solari any questions that you have.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Is this your first school?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Welcome.
Good luck.
This will be pending both an inspection by a field inspector or board member, so let me know when you're ready.
Ready by Wednesday morning?
Okay.
It'll be, so just whenever.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll get hold of it. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, you have on your iPad, starting with page 52, this is Premier Nail Academy. It's a new specialty manicure apprenticeship school. Ms. Keisha Scales. This will need to be on that.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Welcome, Ms. Scales.
This is a new specialty manicure school, and they will be doing exclusively apprenticeships. The school is located in Memphis. It is 500 square feet. You have before you the business license, curriculum, blank contract, floor plan, contingency plan application. 5 manicure contracts have been received and reviewed by the board office, and the fee all also received timely. The school also lists instructor training as one of the items, and so we can discuss that. Obviously, if it's an apprenticeship school, just something to discuss. They wouldn't be able to watch the students do any practical hours, and so this would be the first time this has come up. We can talk about that, but otherwise I'll let you ask Ms. Scales any questions you have.
Summary, you have reference to contingency plans for various emergencies and things like that, but what I see here is really just statements that you have plans. Do you have the actual policies in here in your information?
I'm sorry. Yes, I do. You want the actual contingency plan itself?
You have that? I'd like to see it.
Ms. Roxana stated that that's what you already have in your.
Oh, okay. Well, what I'm saying is just a statement that you have one. Doesn't really give us any information about how you would actually proceed. And what I'm really kind of thinking in the back of my mind is, as a apprentice school, certainly you're going to do the theory class, and then they'll go out into the shops. But specifically, do you have procedures for that shop rejects them and sends them back? How you're going to replace them in some other?
Now, in my research with that, most of the salons that I've reached out to per se, we do have a contract that's strictly with the salon to give guidelines as far as what's expected of the student during their internship time. So we all kind of agree on rules and regulations as far as how that student is to be separate from maybe their main floors, so that clients that do come in are aware that they are being serviced by a student that's in the program.
Just a quick reminder, as part of the apprenticeship, it is a one-on-one with a professional, not at all with the salon, but with that person.
Exactly. But most of the time they have to kind of be in the
Right.
environment of the salon.
Yeah.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations
Thank
and
you
good
so
luck.
very much. I appreciate it. There was one thing on the slip that you had up front. The spelling of the school was missing a letter. I didn't know if that was for permanent or did I have room to. There's an E missing on the E. I didn't know if that was a typo.
Give me a second.
Okay.
Yes, no, we're good. The
Okay.
way you've typed, that's a typo on my part.
Okay.
Yeah. Before you leave, if I could ask a question that stayed in my mind, and it may just be me. On the instructor hours, this is a specialty school, but it's strictly classroom. So we can, I believe, they can have instructor training. That means that you are educating instructors and following the book for just those 300 hours, but they would not be able to be junior instructors. It would just be training.
Correct.
Okay, if the board is comfortable with that. Separately from that, because this is apprenticeship only and not impacting the consumers and the public going there, is the board okay with just a field inspector going to the school? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
Are you ready to be inspected? Not yet. You let me know. Thank you. Thank you
Excuse
so
me,
much.
I have one question. When you had this conversation with the owners in reference to apprenticeship, was compensation ever discussed?
Compensation came up as a question, but myself being a salon owner as well, I perceive the time that it takes for the salon owner to impact this individual. I think they're still more in a learning phase. So I when they come to my salon for the apprenticeship, I don't trust them enough to put them on a client for compensation. I do offer for them to either bring in friends or family, someone that they're familiar with, to just give them the experience of working hand to hand with a client. But no, as far
So you're seeing
as
it as
compensation,
knowledge for time as a equal trade-off. Thank you.
exactly.
Thank you.
And just a quick reminder, under apprenticeship, the students must work on all the clients. They're not just doing certain things. They actually have a chair and are working, just for everyone to make sure that we understand.
Oh, if they're still an apprentice, they're not allowed to do all services, though, correct?
Yes, they have to cover all services. They have taken and passed the theory exam, so their practical hours are the remaining half, and all services do need to be covered because they will be tested on all services, just like any other student.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
We have on the agenda, although I don't have any documents in front of you, this is a represent for the New Pyramid School of Beauty. It's an updated application. Mr. Bryant? Here you go. Give me just a second. Oh, thank you. And this is ma'am?
Welcome, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you. You have Mr. Cleophas Bryant Jr. Mr. Bryant was able to appear before the board in June of 2019, and this is regarding a new barber school as well as a specialty manicure school. The board had approved the school pending 2 inspections, as you normally do, field inspector and board member. Arrangements were made directly by the school with the board member, Yvette Granger, and Ms. Granger was not able to make it in, so she's participating telephonically, and she does these Memphis school inspections often, as does Ms. Sappenfield on occasions as well. 2 separate inspections did take place. During both inspections, student files were either not available or there were reasons why they could not be provided to and complete the inspection. This prompted Ms. Granger to ask the full board for some guidance at the August meeting. If everyone will recall, the board at that time then decided to ask the owner to appear before the board, so it was great to have him here to explain the reasons why the miscommunication, as well as explanations on changing contracts and student files not available. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Bryant.
Morning.
I think we had decided we needed to have a discussion or an explanation on why your files weren't available or made available to the inspector when she arrived for a scheduled inspection.
That particular day, I just wasn't able to meet with her. I talked to Jerry Biddles previously that week, and he said he wouldn't be able to meet on that particular day. So I assumed that she had also got the information, and we was going to postpone to next Wednesday because he said he couldn't meet that particular Wednesday.
Okay, so perhaps that might explain not being able to meet the inspector. But again, this is a scheduled inspection, and it should be the board member as well as your inspector, I believe. What about the records? Whenever they did get with you, you weren't able to produce the files that they requested?
I wasn't able to meet with her at all. We didn't ever meet at the school. She called me, and I let her know I wasn't able to meet her at that particular time. And the reason why is because I talked to Jerry Biddle previously that week, and he said he wasn't be able to meet that particular. I was trying to get both on one day, so he couldn't meet that particular week. So I assumed that he called her so we can all meet at the same time. Also, I pushed it out 2 weeks because I assumed that, well, Ms. Granger informed me that I needed Social Security numbers, IDs, and high school diplomas. But we reassured with Miss Gamusio that I just needed the contracts. So I didn't really need that much time because I already had those. But I did schedule that exact day with her because that's what she informed me.
You with her on that date?
Yes, sir.
Why not?
I didn't meet with her because I talked to Jerry Biddle previously that week, and he said he couldn't meet that particular Wednesday because initially I never had contact with Ms. Granger. It was through Jerry Biddles. So when I contacted Jerry Biddles, I assumed that he contacted her, and we would all meet up at the same time.
Who's Jerry Biddle?
That's the other inspector.
Is the field inspector that has Shelby County?
Okay.
Yeah, the school needed both inspectors. Ms. Granger, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you were able to hear the explanation. I guess it's two-part. We're kind of going over the miscommunication. You and Mr. Brian apparently were never able to speak.
That's true. I know it's been a while, so I can't recollect everything. Everything that happened, I've already communicated with you through email. But I think I spoke to him maybe once during the first initial meeting with him and his assistant there. And then after that, it was kind of a miss. I would call, and there was another time he wasn't there. I came, and he wasn't there. And everything that he's saying about, he told Mr. Biddle, that's correct to my knowledge. But the issue came in because I wasn't informed, so I kept coming out at those times that we had previously discussed, and no one was there, so it kind of looked like a little negligence on his part. I think the assuming that Mr. Biddle told me was the lack of communication there. And as far as the contracts and the high school diplomas and Social Security, once he cleared that with you and you cleared it with me, that was fine. But the contract would have still needed to be redone because it was an old contract.
And you pointed that out at the last meeting, that you'd been told the contract was redone after it had been presented to us. So I have 20 contracts in my hand that I haven't had a chance to review right now that you handed me. So these are different and they've been redone?
No, ma'am, they're actually not different. Them the same contracts that I sent in to you previously.
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Granger, were you under the impression, though, that they had been redone or changed?
No, I thought they were the same ones that, like, what they showed me, what they presented me. It was an old contract, what I saw, and it needed to be redone to fit with what they were doing right now. And I needed to see the contract for the nail shop as well, or I saw the nail shop. Like I said, it's been a while, so forgive me if I don't have my details correct. But no, I wasn't under the impression that it was redone for the current school now.
Roxana, do you have any of the contracts here with you right now?
I have the 20 he's handed me today, which would be 15 barbers and 5 manicuring. I don't have the old ones to see if they're the same, but if Mr. Bryan is saying that they're the same ones they were presented, we definitely can check. What might have been a concern maybe or added to the confusion is the fact that from the original application to the time it was presented, the timing, the coursework, and the hours of operation were being changed.
Yes.
The board, if you remember, reviewed the school being open mostly just nights and weekends, when obviously the board is not open. And we did say that that's still within the statute, that we would have to rearrange random inspections. Obviously, the first one we have to all coordinate correctly, but moving forward, we would have the field inspector adjust their schedule so they can go on a Saturday, Sunday, or nights. That'd be the only way to keep them like all other schools where we just show up. So I think that might have been it, that the contracts didn't have the right hours of operation. But from the one I'm looking at here, it says Monday through Friday, 5:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So it looks at least like the hours are right. I would ask the board if it's okay for, and legal can guide me, but I'd have to just look at them, compare them to what we've got, scan these in, and you can go ahead and make a determination pending that the contracts have no problem.
So the school has still not been inspected.
That is correct. We have not had a successful inspection by either a board member or field inspector. Both are still pending.
Do they have to be there at the same time? Or can
No,
they
most,
don't?
as a matter of fact, most schools don't
Don't,
worry about
so-
that just because it's hard
Right.
to get them. And again, Ms. Granger and Ms. Sappenfield would be the same thing. They arrange inspections all the time. We try to stay out of it, so there is no middleman. They go separate from the field inspector just to keep it simple.
For your knowledge, they could come at separate times, just have everything ready for them.
Yes, ma'am. I will.
Be ready and stay ready.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if those contract issues reflect the corrections, and I do recall that we had some time issues on that last one, on their hours of operation. Those are current and correct contracts. We probably would need a motion to approve and set a new inspection with the board member and make sure that everybody is correct on their times and when we're going to get there. Right?
Field inspector as well.
Field
Both.
inspector as
Yes.
well, yes.
Yes, sir.
And they don't have to be there together.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve upon inspection from the field inspector and board member and verification of the applications. Yeah, and
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any other questions or discussions on this? Well, that
No, I'm fine with that.
okay. Right, so you've heard the motion and the second, verification of all the records, reset the time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Next, you have on your iPads, and this is on page 60. This is Urban Beauty Barber Institute. It's a new barber school. If you'll give me a minute, Mr. Tim Burns and I believe his wife are here to answer any questions you have. Just right, if they have questions, give me just a minute. And who we're going to
Yeah.
Thank you. You have before you a school application for a new barber school. This school is located in Memphis. It is 5,145 square feet. The business license, curriculum, blank contract, floor plan, contingency plan, application, and fee were all received timely. We had a situation where the files themselves, the scanned files, weren't easy to retrieve, and so I have in my hand the 15 contracts that I'll review as well. So, again, if something comes up, that would change the inspection, but otherwise I do have those in hand now. And I will let you ask any questions of Mr. or Mrs. Burns.
Thank you for coming down today.
Morning.
Good morning.
What is the total square footage on your school?
Square footage total of the building or just the school, you said?
The school.
And 50?
5,145.
Correct.
More than enough. Is this your first school?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
First Barber School.
First Barber School? I see your shampoo area and your practical area in your clinic. I don't see any kind of layout for where your chairs and equipment are going to be, but you realize you need at least 15 stations.
30.
Okay.
Oh, no. Put the mic. Thank you.
Where is,
It is right off Austin P. and
okay.
Coleman Road.
I know the building.
Yeah. Right next to the Raleigh Dry Cleaners.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
You have a motion and a second to approve this application. Is there any other discussion? Questions? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations and good luck.
And this too will require a field inspector and board member. Once you're ready, let me know. You've got my number. Okay. You'll need to reach me. Thank you. Thank you. Next on your iPads, we are on page 71. This is really just a correction. Paul Mitchell, the school out of Knoxville, had a change in location for the branch campus. Mr. Kevin Johnson submitted a revised application and an explanation about the branch site itself. It is to be used for the Barber discipline, not the cosmetology. The error in this was discovered as part of the inspection, and once the school was considering moving the students to that site, the floor plan itself has not had any changes. Legal and I discussed it, and really it looked like the wrong application was used. They never intended to move the cosmetology students there, but instead the Barber students. And so you've got his explanation there, and then the proper application itself completed. After legal and I reviewed it and realized it was just an administrative error, we went ahead and approved them to be able to start having the students there because they met the inspection and everything else was done. I just need a motion to approve what we changed and allowed to happen.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion and second to approve the administrative changes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstains. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on your iPads, we're moving on to presentations of the applicants to test, and this starts with our felony applicants. You have before you applications for Lakita Baker, Erlena Brewer, Kayleen Dixon, Tanova Ewing, Brittany Murray, Marcy Purcell, Akakawazara Waller, and Jonathan Vance. These applicants all have felonies within the last 3 years, or they are currently incarcerated. The request is for them to take the Tennessee examination. Therefore, you have all their documents for your review. Upon approval of this, legal will prepare agreed orders for a probationary period of 2 years unless the board deems it necessary to make that for a longer period. I will let you review and ask any questions you may have.
So we're approving to test with a 2-year probation? I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve these applicants for testing. All in favor say aye, and the 2-year
Probationary period, yes.
period. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have the reciprocity application process. If we want to do a review and an explanation to the full board, I had put on our agenda the review of the reciprocity process itself to the end, if that's okay, so we can get all other applicants done. So it would be we presented a total of 9 applications, and Chairman Gillen, I can turn that over to you if you want to fill the board in on anything.
This morning, in the reciprocity meeting, we approved 5 for reciprocity, and then we approved 3 for testing, and 1 one was instructor.
We'll need a motion from the full board just to move ahead with the recommendations made by the Reciprocity Committee.
I'll make a motion to move ahead with the recommendations of the Reciprocity Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are moving on to your miscellaneous items, and we start on page 105. The first item is just a recap. Requests for extensions of continuing education requirements were presented at the last meeting for 2 particular instructors, Takita Kimbrough and Lakita Carter. These were part of the August presentation. They were on your iPads themselves. However, we didn't actually vote on those 2 instructors. Both of them had the one-time request, and immediately thereafter the meeting, we went ahead and sent them the letters just like all the other instructors. I'll remind the board that at that meeting, the board has given me the authority to proceed with these, so you won't have to review them at each meeting, and these 2 individuals met exactly those parameters, so they were approved. We also moved at least a couple of other instructors along those lines. They'd never had an extension before. They were asking for it because the timing didn't work out or they had unforeseen health situations. So that appears to be going well, and I want to thank the board again on that piece. The first one on your iPad is a request for the exam. This is the cosmetology exam with hours from the Ukraine, and it is for Ms. Arminuyi Hamamian. I apologize if I've totally changed her last name. Ms. Hamamian has provided translated transcript and certificate. Her hours were completed in a school as well as practical hours, what we would consider apprenticeship. Her application states that she did 528 hours in a school and 1,226 practical hours in training. Based on the transcript received, the totals look closer to be 918 hours in schoolwork, and the cosmetology curriculum for the apprenticeship we would have to accept is the 1,226. I'm bringing this before the board. Most of our international applicants were able to approve given the guidelines you've given me and translated documents in English and everything looking like it's in line. This is a little bit different because it includes the training as well as the hours, but she is requesting to proceed and be allowed to test.
The motion should be allowed to test.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve for testing. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have a request for approval of a manicurist license for Trina Nguyen. Ms. Nguyen was licensed by Reciprocity in the state of Tennessee by Reciprocity from Texas in 2011. That license was revoked in 2013 for failure to obtain licensure as the statute requires. Since then, she has attended a school in Tennessee and has passed both exams. The practical exam was passed in July of 2019. She is requesting her license be granted.
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. This next request is from an instructor. This is a request to waive the reinstatement exam due to continuing education requirements for the Barber instructor, Ms. Hattie Taylor. Pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated 62-3-124, an instructor must complete 16 hours of an approved training program. It's at the board's discretion to approve up to one additional year for extension. Ms. Granger, could I ask you to put us on mute?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
What page are we on, Roxana?
You are on 122, her request. Thank you. Ms. Taylor has never asked for an extension before and is presenting a letter to the board where she did not receive the paperwork in time to attend. Because she had not asked for the extension timely, her instructor part of the license was removed, and she did renew her full license, but the instructor designation was taken back because, again, if we look at her license, she had to renew by January 31st of 2019, and we are just now getting the request. And so, in essence, she would have to test based on the statute. So her request is for that to be waived. The last session she attended is in August of 2016. The Barber statute is a little bit more flexible than the cosmetology, and it does say that a one-time extension can be granted for an additional year. As I review this, she's sort of past that year, but I am bringing it before the board for your decision.
Do you have any cases with additional precedent set?
I believe we had a health situation one time. It was a very odd illness that had taken place where they completely missed it because of that. I think in the cosmetology statute, you wouldn't have that flexibility even at all. Here you may, but again, anyway, I think she would have needed to attend a session between February 1st, 2017, all the way to 2019. And if we granted that extension of January 31st, 2019 for an additional year, we're sort of in that window if the board wants to kind of stretch it. The fact that the last session was attended in August of 2016 leaves a lot of time span between sessions, so we've never had one kind of go this far.
A contingency to this that you have to attend one prior? If it was considered to attend a training prior to reinstatement.
We'd have to, because right now the way the statute's written is she would have to reinstate her instructor, which is the rules and laws, just 25 questions, and then the practical. If the board waives that, she'd have to attend a session either way. You're right.
So, what's legal's recommendation?
Based on what's been presented, I don't have any issue with what Roxana's proposing.
Thank you.
We would essentially grant her the one-time extension.
We would, and at this point, not ask that she have to test, because when we renewed her license in early 2019 in January, it's already had the instructor part taken away. So normally, we hold that back because they're in this extension period that they've requested. So she would have to attend, and then we could give that back to her if the board sees fit.
Make a motion that we grant her the one-time extension and the addition of her instructor license with the attendance of a session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant the one-time extension. And what, Amy?
The reinstatement of her instructor's license upon a completion of a continuing education.
So you've heard the motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to vote no. Carries.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving ahead to the director's report. We have final numbers for fiscal year 2019. They are on your iPads on page 126. We show a surplus of $293,904, which, as this board can understand, is amazing, considering how close we've always been. This leaves the program with a total reserve of $908,779, which reflects about a 38% of what we would like to have in reserves, and it's a huge improvement, of course. That doesn't mean that you have to have that, but anytime I'm before the legislators or we look at sunset hearings, it is acceptable for a program to have 2 times what it needs. In our case, we go through about close to $2,700,000 in revenue, $2,400,000 expenses. So we would need over $4 million to be at that stage, and we may never get there, which is perfectly great. But this is a really nice cushion as opposed to taking in everything that we've spent and so forth. So and I think it is to be commended because the fee increases that went into effect the middle of 2017. And some reductions to the barbers, I think have been a great thing, and we're starting to feel a calm.
But no raises for the board anytime soon, is that what you're saying?
No, but this is good. So, yes. I have been asked just recently, and I won't give the name, but at a session, how much the board members get paid. And I said, this is about as volunteer as you could make anything. So there is
not
no
paid,
money.
Frank, it's
Big
per diem.
bucks. Roxanne, is that surplus roll over then, I'm assuming?
Yes, so the $908,779 is that continual ongoing surplus, but it does roll over. In theory, some programs ask and get nervous about money being taken, but again, we don't have anywhere close to what we would need for every 2 years. So by no means are we close to having too much money. But I think this is very comfortable money, given that we increased the fees a very small amount and conservative. It was going to bring us exactly where the board wanted to have something left at the end of each year and account for legal inspections and investigations we have to do to protect the public and all those fees. That this program has very heavy fees because of that. Not to mention how many licensees we have. We pick up a lot of the cost based on number of licensees. So we're hit from both angles, number of complaints and number of licensees. So this is great.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then on page 128 is the July month. At the time I was doing these reports, that's the only one that had closed, but by the time we meet in December, we'll have several more. And July, again, reflects a surplus of $104,439. So that's really good. Any questions? Okay. You have on your iPads on page 131, this is an update, and I will need a motion or guidance from the board. The Georgia State Board of Cosmetology and Barbers sent a letter to the Tennessee board dated September 11th, 2019. The letter states that they did not find any violations of Applicable Practice Act sufficient for disciplinary action in the case regarding Atlanta Beauty and Barber Academy or Thai Ai Chang Leng. The board had been denying those hours pending this conclusion of this requested inspection or investigation. With the case closed now in Georgia, I would like permission to start accepting these hours as well as reciprocity from Georgia without requesting transcripts. Given that Georgia didn't find anything, I think we can proceed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the acceptance of these hours from this Georgia school without the requirement of
Additional transcripts.
Additional
Yeah,
transcripts.
that's perfect.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I will turn it back to legal to get the full board to consider these cases.
Good morning, everyone. The committee met this morning and reviewed the legal report. There are 71 complaints total listed. I'll be happy to answer any questions you all have. I just want to note on number 56, on the letter of warning, we have added not only for sanitation violations, but due to the respondent's uncooperative behavior towards the inspector, I will have language within the letter that addresses the need to cooperate and be polite when the inspectors are coming in for an inspection. That was the only change that the committee made. Otherwise, they approved the report.
Questions? Do you have a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
My second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the legal report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And last two items on new business. I will maybe update you on one thing before we then have all the time the board would like on the reciprocity process. The first item that I wanted just to update the board on is a school closing in the Memphis area. This school is LSE Enterprise Incorporated, doing business as Larry's Cosmetology and Barber College. They opened in April of 2019 and closed the doors in August of 2019. So they were open in essence for 5 months. Even the closure was not done in a way that would be considered suitable for the students. We received a letter from the administrator that said they were evicted, and so we had no notice whatsoever that anything else was going on. The owner did not contact the board or make any efforts to handle the situation. It was actually the board office and my team that had to add students to test to PSI. They were not able to even add them themselves. So I just wanted to point that out to the board, maybe for some conversation. I don't know that we can do anything differently, but it's a concern, and we want to open wonderful schools. But when something like this happens with 5 months opened, it's a little bit concerning.
What kind of things did we approve for PSI? Did they have transfer students in? Because in 5 months.
They received some students that came also from the two schools that closed in the Memphis area. So they were taking those transfer students, and they had put some students and started them in the pipeline. So it's those transfer students that they would have been able to put into PSI to test that we had to do. I don't believe any of them really had any notice at all. And then I think a couple did have to then move on, and we walked them through getting their paperwork. So
They were cosmetology.
they had both. We approved them for barbering and cosmetology. Yeah. And they
I remember this is Yvette Granger. I remember Larry's Cosmetology School being open because he had some paperwork that wasn't in order, and he got it back in order. So they really seemed like they were about their business. So I'm very disappointed as a board member that participated in that opening, that they did not do the proper steps to close and notify students. So I'm very disappointed in that. So maybe we should look into being a little bit tougher with opening those schools, especially when they're coming from out of town, because he had 7 other cosmetology schools somewhere else.
I think you are remembering the right school. Yes, ma'am. He sure did.
Roxana, have we had many students reach out to us? Do we kind of know what the count is?
We did. We probably assisted between 5 to 8. A couple didn't have enough hours, so they moved on. But we've put probably 4 to 5 of them to test. So we went ahead and added them to PSI, and by now they're in the middle of the testing process. Since this all happened in August, I don't believe we've licensed any of them yet. But just information for the board to keep in mind. So that's all it was, is more just sharing.
The reasoning for closing was they were evicted from their building?
Yes, ma'am. And again, I never had the opportunity to talk to the owner. This was through the administrator, but she was heartbroken. It was very difficult. Obviously, you've taken on students. We're trying to do things right. So she did, I think, the best she could to get the information to us. Yes. So. And the only other thing I have is the reciprocity item that we reviewed in June barely. In August, we discussed it again. So I'm happy to fill everyone in on my notes from this morning. The reciprocity committee was wonderful. We went through our 9 applicants and then had some time to discuss. And I'm happy to recap or turn it over to the committee to discuss. Okay, and if I've missed anything, please let me know. So given the conversations, it was presented and I think agreed on by all the committee members that in order to be able to welcome reciprocal applicants in a more expedient fashion and not put them through additional hours if it's not needed, the group discussed considering what substantially meets as long as they are educated in their state. And some states, as we know, might have 1,000 hours compared to our 1,500, but educated is the first piece and not get into the number of hours. As long as they have taken the exams, which right now are a theory and a practical, then the experience is still deemed needed, and therefore the committee felt that we could consider experience to be 1 year within the last 3 or 2 years within the last 5. Then these individuals would be considered to substantially meet reciprocity, and we would be able to approve those. Obviously, anyone that doesn't still meet those pieces would come before the board for consideration and so forth. I think that's where we were at.
Educated, of course, equals that they're licensed in that state and current license.
Sounds good to me.
In that case, I think we probably need a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of the committee to the board.
I'm sorry, we had someone in the audience. Mr. Woods, if you'd like to address the board for just a minute for some input, we'll be glad to hear from a school owner.
Yeah, thanks. First, I'd like to thank the board. I know you guys are highly compensated, but we really do appreciate what you guys do. The general public actually looks at you guys as being in charge of everything, as you well know, so you take the brunt of all of the abuse. I can't believe that the board, let this go through. So just so you know, I'm out there actually defending you guys too. The main thing I wanted to bring to your attention, we actually just attended AACS meeting, which is the American Association of Cosmetology Schools. That is obviously a nationwide organization with lobbyists on the national level, but we as a group just get together, and not only on the national, but also we compare notes as far as what's going on in our states. You guys need to be informed really and you may already know, but just in case you don't, there's a large push across the country for deregulation, obviously, and or the reduction of hours. What they're doing is presenting legislation to deregulate and then settling for a reduction. The state of Texas is actually one of them. They went from 15 to 1,000. The state of Florida has gone from 1,200 to 750 for cause, 500 for Barber. So they're all going down. Where this is actually coming from, there's two major well-funded, what I would call right-wing extremist groups, and they're also well-organized, and they're in individually state organizations. But they're actually starting at the lower end or some of the smaller programs where they don't get as much pushback, and then they go from there. Just like braiding and natural hairstyling is going to be one, I can assure you that's going to be presented again. Blow dry bill is also a big push that's coming from across the country now. But cosmetology is next. So just be really careful when we're even considering taking a license from another state and just kind of giving them instant reciprocity. So there needs to be some regulation, just really to protect our industry. Yeah, we're here to protect the public, but we're also here to protect the industry too. In years past, we actually had a legislative update. I would request, just for your benefit, I know it sounds like we have a new attorney, but it would be great if the board could actually get updates on the legislation that's actually being presented so we don't get blindsided again. It's really sad to say that our legislators, and I know everybody's busy, but the legislators really are from like the general population. So we've got attorneys. We've got one man is actually owner of a trucking firm. They have no idea anything about our industry. They're taking direction from these lobbyists. One of the organizations that's actually here in the state of Tennessee last year had 5 registered lobbyists on staff. That's some big bucks. It always goes back to follow the money. So we really need to have a voice, and when we see something like this is coming up, we don't have the money, but we do have the votes. So we really need to have a way of getting the word out. The first thing that I would suggest, if it's at all possible, is making sure that our board is actually informed of what's going on. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of scary. I've been in the industry for 37 years, 38 years. The industry's been really good to us. That's why we're here today, is actually to help defend it. But we need to know what's going on. Anything that we can do as a school owner, student body, if we need to march on the hill, we're happy to do that. But I really think that it's important that you guys are also informed too of what's going on.
Thank you very
Sure,
much.
you bet.
Appreciate your input. Okay. I did want to make one correction here, just for the record. The board's only mandate is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. We're not in the business of, nor could we, protect or promote any business interest. That would not be proper. Okay, just for the record. We have a motion on the floor that's been properly seconded. We're about to call for the vote. I'm sorry, you have something?
Can you clarify the motion that's been?
Sure. The motion was, let me get back to my note here, that substantially meets, for Tennessee's purposes, would be that the individual is licensed in the state they're coming from, that they have been tested in that previous state, that 1 year out of 3 or 2 years out of 5 would meet our substantial clause.
Experience.
Work experience, yes. Questions?
Good, we did have a second.
I believe we had a second. Was it you? Okay. Other questions? I'm sorry. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. And I think for my mind, if you don't mind me rehashing,
Sure,
just
go
so
ahead.
that I know who we're moving and this is a significant change just from the experience years, but not necessarily everything else, other than we're not stuck and focused on number of hours. We're stuck and now focused on active license with education, and no school state that I know of licenses without the education. So it's just our states and U.S. territories. So it would be an active license, tested, which would imply both the theory and the practical. So we would review anyone missing the exams, still completely different. They wouldn't meet it. And then as far as work experience, they would need 1 out of the last 3 years of experience. So 1 year would be fine, or 3 out of the last 5. And that experience, for those not on the committee, was us being considered for people that might be going back to school for something else, staying at home to raise children, health situations. That way it's not limited to the last year necessarily, but it definitely uses experience in this vote. So do I have it right?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else coming before the board?
No, I'd just like to maybe piggyback on that and say I'm glad to see that this policy is in place. Going back 30 plus years ago, I moved to Tennessee personally, and I never went to barber school or cosmetology school a day of my life, but I've been doing hair about 12 years, licensed in the state of New Jersey, and they didn't know what to do with me.
We still don't, right? We still don't.
They deliberated. They went in the hallway. They took bathroom breaks. I was sitting in the corner just saying, "Man, could I make a living?" And I got to buy Pampers and formula to feed my kid. And They still don't know what to do with me, but at least I'm able to legally do hair. So again, I think there's always different ways to split it. We can, back to Mr. Wood, we can argue one way or the other, but we do have to protect, obviously, the public. And I am a proponent for the industry as well. This is my 49th year in it. And we're not always going to see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, the upside is that we collectively make that decision and we can live with what the board chooses to do. But I think this one is really good for allowing people that move to Tennessee that have done the proper channels to be able to go to work and become a taxpayer and a legal hairdresser. And I want to add one other thing. Some of that money is coming from the far left as well, trying to take down delicensure. Not necessarily the far right. There's more money coming from two brothers that hang out over on the left side. But we won't get into their names right now because this is probably public, right?
It's street live.
I really don't care, but no, I'd like to also acknowledge the fact that I do appreciate you representing the industry, and I wish all school owners do what you guys do, because I know the school owners in the audience. There's a lot of good schools out there. Problem is there's some others that aren't, and we get kind of thrown in one big basket, and we get talked about as hairdressers, barbers, and school owners. And yet it's the old 80-20. I think if the 80 were doing what the 20 do, these meetings would last about 20 minutes. We'd be able to hit the gauntlet and get out of here. So I'm just proud to be on this team, and I'm just glad that the work that we're doing is for the betterment of the industry. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Frank.
The only other thing I do want to add to remind the board, so we review legislation that comes to the state of Tennessee. And as the board knows, we start in January and for the most part go through June just to make sure anything that's been signed gets covered in June, because sometimes they don't get signed until even July. However, keeping up with what other states are doing, that would be at your discretion as individuals in the industry, I believe. I don't know that legal can reach out. They sometimes read these things. But obviously, again, because we're here to protect the public, our public, we don't always reach all those avenues of what's going on, because I don't think then we'd have time to focus on what needs to be done here. That's not to say that you individually don't want to do that, but that's what's presented at the meetings, is what's impacting the industry and the public here.
National Beauty Association publishes what is going on in every state.
Absolutely.
So you just have to go on their website and sign up for those publications.
Right.
Will the board indulge me to make one introduction for just a moment, be very brief? Miss Dixie Russell, if you would, come on up to the podium. Miss Russell has come up from Texas. She represents the Chi Corporation, I guess. This is not an ad or anything like that. We're not going to talk about those businesses, just as an introduction. I know that she is going to present, I believe, at the December meeting for a CEU class for the instructors. So we're not proper to get into that yet either, except I wanted to give you some background. I just wanted to introduce her to her and see if she had anything to say, because she came so far. She was interested in meeting new board members. So,
Morning.
We've had a wonderful time here this morning, seeing everything behind what you do here in the state of Texas, and I have a lot more respect for that, even more so from Tennessee, coming from Texas, and our license went down to 1,000 hours. So I'm glad to see that you are stepping and paying attention to that. I have one personal, professional suggestion for the reciprocity is, why not have them come and take the sanitation class prior to getting their license? Because I keep hearing the sanitation going back and forth across the floor. So that's just a personal, professional suggestion. The reason why I'm here today is we're excited to sit with Mr. Ron with one of our schools, and we understand that Tennessee needs more education as far as inspiring our instructors, right? When we're out there and we're teaching and we're sharing, we get brought down. Our energy, our batteries get worn out. So Farouk Systems would like the opportunity to come back in December and do a Tennessee Tennessee's Instructors Retreat for 2020. It's all focused and based on curriculum in the classroom as well as teaching methodologies, and then we're going to get into social media and how it can be used in a positive manner as business related with the students as well as the schools. So I have a couple of brochures here just for you to look at and see what's kind of going on. We have Mr. Ron is going to be one of our special guest speakers. So, do you have any questions? No.
Thanks for coming. I just wanted to introduce you to the folks that you're going to be working with, hopefully. So, okay. Is there anything else to come before the board? Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We all second that, Ron.
Okay, Frank. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yes.
Thank you. Y'all have a beautiful day.
You too. All the best.
Well, that was about the most probably the simplest one we've ever had.
She did all right, evidently, with it. I don't know what it was doing.
Well, and all three of us tried.